Hi, hello and welcome everybody to the last day of InfoComm. I hope everyone has enjoyed this event so far. I know I have enjoyed it and it's great to be here in person. I'm here today to discuss the integration of production into virtual event platforms, or how we have affectionately termed it, gray ops, because the world of virtual events is not black and white. So let's start by introducing ourselves. Who is Opus? Opus Agency partners with world-shaping brands to catalyze movements through shared experiences. Across 4 decades, our end-to-end capabilities have accelerated momentum at the intersection of events, content, and community. Category creators and global brands trust us to scale excellence across focused strategy, fearless creativity, emerging technology, and agile delivery. All together, from hubs throughout the United States, in the heart of London and around the world, you'll find our teams forming and fueling the future of brand movements. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into how we arrived at the term gray to describe this role. It started way back in 2020, as the world was deeply impacted by the global pandemic. As we leveraged the talents of our teammates that had extensive experience with registration platforms and web development, also known as our digital studios team, we as an agency had to adapt and dig deep into the production capabilities of various platforms. Our technical production teams used their in-person event experience to help uncover potential pitfalls for those providing content to those various platforms. We dubbed the area as Gray Ops. It's the space between our digital studios team, technical production team, and our content studios team. Most platforms appear similar at a high level. However, we found that once you dig deep into the details of the attendee experience, those details profoundly affect how we produce virtual sessions. It goes beyond platform final video specs and best practices. It goes to ownership of who is responsible for the speaker to show up to their session virtually. From tracking to uploading, Gray Ops is the final session quality control to ensure that virtual attendees are experiencing the correct virtual event experience. Okay, so now that you've gotten to know us a little bit better, it's time to dive into the content of this presentation. And our first stop is content. Content for events have a wide array of definitions, applications, and owners. As they say, content is king. Content touches every work stream, and in many cases, that same piece of content has multiple owners. With so many stakeholders, clear direction can become muddy, and this is where Gray Ops can provide clarity. Let us define some examples of content in context to this presentation. Session content is by far the most widely used event content that crosses almost all work streams. Some of the ways that this content is utilized is on event registration websites, event platforms, and presentation title slides. Due to the extended gap in time between registration launch and the recording of pre-recorded content, there can be discrepancies between session content listed on the pre-recorded title slide and the event platform. It is critical that a thorough QC is done to update the platform to match the pre-recorded title slide. Presentation decks also have many elements of content, either within the decks themselves or at the different stages of the deck lifecycle. For example, many virtual sessions share PDF versions of presentation decks as supplemental handouts for the attendees to access. So it's important that any updates to the deck made throughout the post-production process are tracked and clearly communicated to ensure the accuracy of the handouts accessed by the attendees on the virtual platform. Pre-recorded videos, caption files, and thumbnails are also all content that needs to be tracked with a virtual session. Now let us go on a journey of a single virtual session and explore how different platform capabilities affect how we produce the session and the amount of content that needs to be tracked, uploaded, and QC'd. 1 second. Whoa. All right. The most important element to define early on is how an attendee will experience a session in the virtual event platform. Some questions that need to be answered include, is the session in person, live streamed, semi-live, video on demand, or a combination? Will the same session be available on multiple dates and times, and is there a need to add a sponsor pre-roll or post-roll to any sessions? It is also vital to identify early on if the session will need to be accessible on an additional platform post-event. Those examples can include client, internal platforms, other CDNs, and social sites. There are many more questions that need to be asked depending on whether the session is live streamed, semi-live, and/or video on demand. And we will get to those later on in the presentation. For now, let us define the example session we are using for this journey. Our session. It will be semi-live, available on 3 different dates and times using the Follow the Sun event model. The session will be available as a video on demand after it is viewed semi-live, and sponsor ad pre-rolls are needed. Additionally, this session will have English captions, translated subtitles in 5 languages, a handout of the deck, and a thumbnail is needed. And just for fun, this session will also live post-event on another platform. So let us see how the answers to the above questions can impact production workflow based on 2 different virtual event platforms, including the post-event platform. Okay, so let's take a look at our first example. This platform does have the ability to allow semi-live sessions to switch to video on demand after the semi-live session is complete. To accommodate the multiple dates and time requests, this platform will create 3 distinct sessions. This platform also supports closed caption and up to 15 VTT files per video. The platform also supports a separate pre-roll video, document uploads, and individual session thumbnails. In this example, our single session will need to be uploaded 3 times, 1 to each date and time instance. And there's no need for the separate VOD since this platform has the ability for life after the semi-live event. All right. Each of the 3 instances will have the same content uploaded and QC'd. 1 session video and 1 closed caption file with 5 translated subtitle files, 1 pre-roll video and 1 closed caption file and 5 translated subtitle files, 1 handout and 1 thumbnail. Okay, so now this one session has 48 total pieces of content to track, upload, and QC based on this example. And I bet this number is not your first number you thought of when we were talking about one session, right? Okay, so next we'll add in the post-event platform requirements and review how this impacts our current session content that has already been identified for creation based on the event platform. So for our post-event platform will need sponsor roll, does not need the sponsor roll pre-rolls and no handouts. And additionally, it needs SRT files opposed to VTT files. Since the event platform and the post-event platform have different caption file requirements, this means we need to create new files for closed caption and translation. We are now adding 8 additional pieces of content to upload, track, and QC, while 6 of these items are net new creations. And that brings our total to 56 pieces of content tracked, uploaded, and QC'd for one session. Now imagine if you had 50 similar sessions. That would be 2,800 pieces of content tracked, uploaded, and QC'd. And you might be asking yourself, why does this matter? And I would say, great question, Self. Not having a clear session journey early on or pivoting platforms will impact workback schedules, budgets, and may result in content that is finished having to be reworked. All right, so let us see how a platform pivot can impact our content session with our second example platform. Cool. Here are the elements of this platform that are different from our first example. Excuse me. This platform does not support semi-live sessions to switch to video on demand after the semi-live session is complete. This platform also does not support separate pre-roll videos. In this example, our single session will need to be uploaded 4 times, 1 to each date type instance and an additional upload for video on demand. Each of the 4 instances will have the same content uploaded and QC'd. The only difference from the first platform is that our pre-roll video will have to be baked in to the final video, or in other terms, one video file that contains both pieces of content. This same one session on this platform has 36 total pieces of content to track, upload, and QC. Okay, so now let's see how the post-event platform impacts this session. Our post-event platform requirements are the same from example 1. And just like our previous post-platform example, we will have to create SRT files instead of VTT files. We are now adding 8 additional pieces of content to upload and track in QC, while 7 of those items are net new creations. The thumbnail in this example is the only piece of content that is not different. This is because we have to create a whole new video file that removes the pre-roll. This brings our total to 44 pieces of content tracked and QC'd for this one session. I hope the journey of the single session illustrates the importance of defining session journey early in the process and how the event platform can impact the production workflow. As previously mentioned, there are many more questions that need to be asked depending on whether the session is live stream, semi-live, and/or available as video on demand. Most of these questions revolve around the attendee perspective, similar to our previous questions. Here are a few to consider. Understanding what the attendee sees before the session is launched is vital to understanding live stream timing, semi-live countdown clock functionalities, thumbnails, and many other elements. For instance, for video on demand, if the attendee is viewing all VODs in a gallery view, having the same thumbnail visible for all sessions would be visually repetitive. In this instance, using the title slide from the deck or alternating a handful of thumbnails will add visual diversity to your page. However, if the attendee is accessing the video on demand through Session Catalog, you can use the thumbnail for each session or one thumbnail per session track. It is equally important to understand what happens if a session runs over or under the published time. I mean, no matter how hard the speaker tries, most either fall a little short or a little bit over of their allotted time. I'm pretty sure I will. With the pre-recorded content, there is the ability in post-production to add a bumper to extend the session to fill the full published time. There are some platforms that will throw up a generic, "the session has ended," in place of the player. And this is so if an attendee navigates to a 30-minute session and the session was only 12 minutes, they at least know that the session is complete. However, there is an opportunity to extend the event look and feel by a simple bumper reel that plays for the remainder of the session. On it, you can advertise when the session is available on demand, a reminder to fill out the survey, which, hint, it's super important, okay? Or other opportunities the attendees may want to know about. Running overtime is equally important to understand. Some platforms will not allow attendees to access the player after the scheduled time has concluded. If your session is running overtime, the attendee navigates away from the web page, they will not be able to view the end of the session. And some platforms will actually cut off the attendee access to the platform at the end of the scheduled session time. Pre-roll features can be tricky. For semi-live, some pre-roll features must be viewed before the attendee can access the semi-live. If the attendee is running 5 minutes late to a keynote, and then they must sit through a 5-minute pre-roll, they are now 10 minutes late to the keynote, which is not the desired result. If that is the case, the direction you may need to take is to be baking in the pre-rolls throughout the platform for this, even though the platform has a pre-roll function. Some additional questions to ask for live stream and semi-live sessions. Understanding how the platform integrates live feeds from other CDNs and how the native platform CDN live feed functions is critical. Some platforms allow control over the activation and deactivation of your stream. Having this flexibility and control will allow for a greater range of testing and troubleshooting prior to the event. Other platforms will generate feeds close to the event date and will activate the stream at a specific time before the event. This option is perfect for the plug-and-play style live stream session. However, it does not allow for any flexibility in testing, troubleshooting, and contingencies. If the CDN has a native RTMP feed backup, this is a great feature to enable to add security to your streaming. However, depending on the robustness of the contingency plan for the event, this may not be your only backup stream. Most platforms allow access to the stream, the session player prior to the session start time. Normally, these are set anywhere from 15 minutes to 5 minutes before the scheduled session time. This allows the attendee who navigates to the page close to the start of the event to mitigate caching issues. Some CDNs have a built-in countdown clock, while other platforms rely on the content to have the built-in countdown clock. Okay, there are many, many more subtle questions to ask, conversations to be had on best ways to track massive amounts of content, and other tips and tricks. However, we've come to the end of my allotted time. Thank you guys all for attending our session today. I hope you found it informative. I know it is a lot to digest in a short amount of time, and topics are heavy in nuances. So feel free to reach out via email, and I will also be available off stage if anybody has any specific questions. Thank you.